get your Excel open, your Excel workbooks or Google Sheets. I'll show you how to get Google Sheets if you don't already know. So if you just open Google, you can just type in Google Sheets. And Google Sheets is very similar to Excel. It just doesn't have all the same functionality. And once you're here, just go to Personal, go to Google Sheets, and then you'll see it, or just open a blank sheet just like that using this button. And then you'll see it looks fairly similar to Excel. The nice thing about working in Google Sheets is that it saves everything automatically. So you don't have to press the save button. But like I said, some of the functionality in Excel is different. And we won't be able to use Google Sheets later on when we start doing all the VBA lessons. So at that point, I'll show you guys how you can actually get a free trial of Excel. It's a 1-month trial, so you can't get it now. Just use it for the later half when we start doing VBA, because you can't do any VBA in Google Sheets. Okay. Welcome, everyone. I'm still not sure how to get this to pop out. Anyway, okay. So it's 7 o'clock. I want to get started. Hello, everyone. Please let me know where you are listening from in the chat. So we have a ton of study strategy program members, a few members from the Actuary job search program, and I also invited a few others just to join in to see if they like these sessions, and just to get the very first session and see how it actually is. After that, all the sessions are just going to be for study strategy program members and members of the Actuary job search program. Okay, from Atlanta, New York, San Diego, California, Michigan, awesome. Nashville, I'm in Canada, right near Toronto. Virginia, Nashville, Slovenia, Winnipeg, oh, another Canadian. Awesome. So glad that you guys were able to come and join in on these Excel sessions. So I am going to be recording them all. And for members of the study strategy program and the Actuary job search program, they're going to be available as recordings later on. So if there's anything you want to go back to and try again later, you can try. There's also going to, or you can rewatch and then try it again yourself. There's also going to be a Q&A forum. So if you're trying different things in Excel throughout the week based on what we learned, you can ask questions in there if you get stuck or anything like that. Okay, Puerto Rico, Houston, awesome. And the Q&A forums are right in the same area as the Q&A forums for the math and stuff in the study strategy program. Anyone that's in the Actuary job search program will have to give you specific access to those, because you don't get access to those forums in the job search program. All right. Okay, so let's get started. If you guys have any questions throughout this session, you can just ask them in the chat. We're going to go through things at a fairly slow pace, just so everyone has time to digest everything, and we're not going too fast. The sessions will last about an hour. And yeah, they're going to go 8 weeks. So we're going to be starting with some beginner and then move into more intermediate Excel stuff. Then we're going to probably go into VBA after that. And then after the VBA, we'll go into more advanced Excel stuff. So let me show you a little bit what we're going to be working on. So basically, we're going to be creating a huge an insurance premium calculator. Now, I've really simplified down the calculations and everything, but it's really going to help you learn how to use Excel and all the different functionalities of it. So basically, if you see this page, let me see here for a second if I can make this a bit bigger for you guys. Okay, so this is going to be an insurance premium calculator. We're going to take in a whole bunch of different variables relating to the policyholder. So we're going to work with the gender, the type of vehicle that they're driving, how many doors their vehicle has, the age of the driver, and how many years they've been licensed. And then we'll also deal with some interest rates. We're going to calculate a whole bunch of probabilities and values, and then we're going to discount those. If you're studying for exam FM right now, you've been doing a lot of discounting, so we're going to use some of the theory that you learn on exam FM, discount to get a final premium. So just to simplify things, we're kind of doing like a 10-year car insurance policy. So someone will pay for their whole car insurance upfront for the next 10 years. It's not a situation that would ever happen. People don't really pay for car insurance for 10 whole years at the exact, like upfront at the same time. But this is just a fun and simplified example, and I'm trying to relate it to what you might kind of be working on in actuarial positions. All right, so basically we can change all these. We have some drop down boxes, so we can make this female, and that, or we can change it from female to male, and that changes the value of the insurance. So we can make this 4, and now it's 2,479. If they're licensed for, let's say, 5 years, then the premium turns to 2,608. So we're going to learn how to do all this calculation in Excel, and it's going to take quite a while, but that's okay. We're here to learn, and we're going to learn a lot. And then actually, I'll show you this as well. So over here, we have a whole bunch of over 100 different policyholders. I've just made up this data, and we're going to be doing that. So policyholder 1 is a male, age 30, drives a truck with 2 doors, licensed 1 year. We want to calculate what their insurance will be. Their insurance premium would be if we had an interest rate of 3% and then 4%, 5, 6, and 7. So we're going to fill in this whole table eventually with calculations. Now, if you were to do this manually, you would have to go into this calculator, fill in each of these separately. You'd put them in each of these different spots, and then you'd calculate the premium, or it would be calculated in Excel. And then you'd have to calculate this premium, copy it from here, and then put it in this just for calculating the 3% interest. So as you can imagine, let's say it would take you maybe 30 seconds to do one of those calculations. Imagine how long it would take you to do 5, and then how long it would take you to do 5 for each of these 100 policyholders. That would take a really long time, because that means over 500 calculations. So we're going to learn how to use VBA code to automate tasks and make them go a lot quicker. That means we're going to learn how to create this button, and we can just press the button and watch. In just a few seconds, it's going to do all those premium calculations for us, and it's going to fill in this page with all the premiums. So see how quickly it did that? It filled out all of this just instantly, almost instantly. And I'll also show you how to make all these highlighted that are exactly $1,000, because we might want to look at those special. So yeah, this is basically what we're going to be creating throughout the entire 8 weeks. And at the very end, we will also be learning how to compile and summarize all this data into easy reporting format, so that you could give this to your manager or upper management, so that they could make decisions using what you found. We'll do some analysis on the data and stuff too, all using Excel, and that will be at the very end. Okay, so I want to get started. Make sure now it would be the good time to open up your Google Sheets or your Excel workbook. So I'll start in a new workbook here just to make things easier for you. Just like you guys, I'll be starting from the same exact place as you. So really, I'm just going to be creating this whole calculator off the top of my head. We're going to go do things like I already created the calculator. So we're basically going to go through the exact steps that I went to. Sometimes I had to go back and change things and stuff like that, and we'll be doing the same thing, because whenever you have issues like that in Excel, you'll always want to be able to go back and fix them and know how to do all the little nuances that will make things easier for you. So first off, open your Excel workbook, just like this. And what I want you to do first is just save it as a macro-enabled workbook. And that just means that we're going to actually be able to store code in it. So later when we do our VBA coding, you are going to be able to actually save the code in there. A regular Excel workbook won't let you do that. So you have to make sure you're saving as a macro-enabled workbook. So you do that just by going down here, Save as Type, and click Excel Macro-Enabled Workbook. And we can just say, I'll just call it 8 weeks training workbook. And that is not an 8. Okay, you can name it whatever you want. Come back to it later. We're going to be basically building on top of the workbook every single week. We'll be adding more and more to it. Okay, let me know if you were able to save your workbook properly as a macro-enabled workbook. If you're using Google Sheets, you don't need to do that because it saves automatically, and you also can't really use macros in there. And by the way, if you find that you're not able to type in the group chat, or it seems like I'm not answering your questions, sometimes people have issues if there was some kind of problem on the back end. So just log out of the session and log back in if it seems like you're not able, if I'm not seeing your questions and stuff like that. I'll be taking questions in the chat area today, not the Q&A box like usual. So just put your questions in the chat if you have them. Okay, so sounds like you guys have got that. Let's go through a bit of the terminology quickly for an Excel workbook. So basically this whole like screen thing that we have here is called the Excel workbook. Everything contained in here is part of the Excel workbook. These right down here are called sheets. So you can actually click here and you'll find that it will add new sheets to your workbook. So everyone right now can just try adding in a few more worksheets. And basically one workbook can have many, many different sheets within it. You can even name your sheets. So if you just double click on the sheet name down here, you could call this, I don't know, let's say table 1. Then you can go to this one and call that table 2, table 3. Name them whatever you want, but just try that. So these are called sheets. And now we're not actually going to be using those right now. So you can just right click and click delete right here. And let's say maybe you want to make a copy of the workbook or the worksheet. You can just click right here and you can say move or create a copy. So in this case, let's just create a copy of this table 2 workbook, just like that. And you can have it move to the end. That means it'll put it here instead of putting it at the beginning here. It doesn't really matter because you can just move around your sheets in any order that you want, just like that. Okay, so let's make sure the sheet with table 1 the name table 1 is at the beginning, and then just delete these other 2. And when you copy a sheet, it copies everything that's on that sheet to the new sheet that you create. Okay, so now we're back to just having one tab. We can call this rate tables because that's what I called it in my sample workbook. And everyone will see each of these little boxes in Excel on your Excel sheet. Those are called cells, C-E-L-L-S. So that's how we refer to these boxes. If we want to refer to this specific cell, then we would just call it H9, since it's in the intersection of H and 9. So we can just type in here H9 if you want, like that. And this is referred to as a column. So this is column H, this is column F, this is column D, column M, and these are rows. So this is row 11, row 16, row 2. So H9 is just the intersection of column H and row 9, and that's how we would reference that cell if we wanted to talk about it. Okay. So let's first start off just by putting some numbers into Excel. So we're basically going to work on creating these rate tables that we'll be using later on to calculate premiums. So let's just start by learning how to create a random number in Excel. So whenever you want to put a formula into Excel, you have to put an equal sign before it first. Otherwise, Excel won't recognize it as a formula. And I'll show you what happens if it doesn't think it's a formula in a minute. But we'll want to put an equal sign in, and then just put rand, just like that, and click enter. And it's going to give you a random number between 0 and 1. Now everyone's is going to be different because this is random. So let me know in the chat what number you came out with, rounded to 3 decimal places. Okay, awesome, lots of numbers there. Don't see any the same, so that means they're all random. Awesome. Okay, so for this cell, we put in an equal sign before. If we just put in our formula without the equal sign, it's just going to stay like that. It's not actually going to calculate anything. We have to put the equal sign in there beforehand. So if you just try doing what I just did, put rand like that, you can actually go up here to adjust your formula, and then you can just put an equal sign here to fix the problem, and then you'll have another random number. And you'll see whenever I press enter, it's actually recalculating all these formulas. So that's why it keeps on popping up with a new random number. So every time you press enter, then that means Excel is recalculating any formulas that are in any of the cells. Okay, so let's try something simple like 3 plus 7. That's how you'd put in a simple formula into an Excel spreadsheet. If you were just to not do the formula, you'd get this, 3 plus 7, and that's not what you want. You would want to go in here, put your equal sign ahead so that you get what you want. Sometimes people put a plus sign instead of an equal sign. I prefer not to do that, but it works the same. I mean, it just makes things a little more confusing, but it actually changes it. I didn't realize it changed it. Sometimes in some versions of Excel, I think it will actually just leave it as a plus sign, but in mine it seems to be actually changing it to an equal sign, which I prefer. Okay, and then we can also do simple stuff like let's do 3 minus 7 instead. Excel can do that pretty easily. So then we'll get minus 4. We can do 3 times 7, which is just the little star symbol on your 8 key. We can do equals 3 divided by 7, and we get 4.28 or 0.428. Okay, so there's tons of different calculations you can do in Excel, and every time we press enter, Excel is actually recalculating each of these, but they're just staying the same because nothing's changing in the formulas. But let's try something a little different now. Okay, so before each of these numbers that you created randomly, that are the random numbers, those are each changing each time because they're a formula. Sometimes we don't want our numbers to change. We want them to just stay the same. We want the formula to we just want these numbers to stay exactly the same. So what you can do is you can just highlight them and press, or right click and press copy. And you'll see that green moving border come up around those numbers. And then you can just paste special and paste values right here. Just like that. And now you can see that it pasted the values of those formulas. We no longer have any formulas up here. We just have the values that they created. So a lot of the time we use formulas in Excel, but we don't want the numbers to change. We just, for some reason or another, we want to just keep the values exactly as they are. So that would be a good time to paste values only. Okay, so let's try something else here. Now, for example, we might want to add these two numbers up, our two random numbers here. So we could go equal 0.557928 plus 0.370299. We could do that, but a much easier way to do it would just be to say equals and then click on the cell that has your number in it. And then you'll see it's up here, it's referring to cell D5. And then you can just do a plus and then click on the cell D7, which has your other number in it. So you can look at a formula right here or the formula right here, but when you press enter, you'll see that it does that calculation for you. So it's actually referring directly to the values in those cells so that you don't have to type in the numbers like manually. So you might want to do something like that if these numbers are going to be changing. So for example, if we go equals rand here, see now this number is always going to stay the same, but this number is a formula now. So even when this number changes, now that this formula is referring to this cell right here that is changing, it means that this summation automatically updates too. And actually, if you just click on your cell here and click up here, it will highlight the cells that it's referring to in its formula. So you can tell that D5 is the cell it's referring to that's blue, and D7 is the cell it's referring to that's red. Okay, are you guys with me? Am I going too fast? Or is this a good pace so far? I know some of you are a little less experienced with Excel and some are a bit more, so I don't want to go too fast or too slow for anyone. Okay, awesome. Good to hear. Okay, so now let's get rid of all these numbers and start creating our table. Basically, you can just highlight all of these cells, just make a big box over top of them, and just press the delete button on your keyboard and they'll all be gone. So now we're starting back from a blank sheet. Okay, so let's start working on this age table, or this table here. So basically it's going to have the age of the policyholder on the top, and then gender down the side, and then we're going to fill in some numbers here. So that's not the one I wanted. Here it is. Okay, so to start off, you can just pick any cell. We're going to fix it up to make sure all the formatting is how we want it later. But for right now, let's just put in a random number into the cell to start our table. We want it to be between 0 and 1 because our random numbers are going to be probabilities. So if you're studying for exam P, or even if you're studying for exam F, you should know that all probabilities are between 0 and 1. So our random numbers are going to represent probabilities. So we want them to be between 0 and 1. Okay, so right now we want to have random numbers for 10 columns here. So actually, let's start labeling our columns. See how, or our cells. See here how I put my ages. We're only going to create a table right now that goes from 20 to 30, age 20 to 30. But we can start first by labeling those. So let's just put a 20 into this cell. And a lot of us would go ahead and just put 21 here and maybe 22 here. But right now we're only doing 10 numbers, so it wouldn't be too bad if we had to go ahead and do those all manually and just do 20 all the way up to 30. But imagine if you had 50 or something numbers that you had to put in, it would be a bit more time consuming and tedious. So there is a really easy way to do this. Excel is really smart. So if you just highlight these 3 that you already put in, 20, 21, and 22, it recognizes the pattern. It recognizes that you're just going up by 1 each time. So you can grab this little box. See how it has that little like small square in the corner there? You can grab that and just drag it along and see how it's starting to count up automatically. It's telling you what number it's going to fill in the cells with by itself. So we can do that, let go, and then it filled those all in for us. So now we didn't have to go in and manually update those numbers or add in those numbers. Excel recognized the pattern, and then it proceeded to fill in all those cells that we highlighted with the numbers that we wanted it to fill it in with. That's a pretty cool function of Excel. Okay, and then right here, did everyone get that working? Did yours work and expand as you wanted it to? I'm not 100% sure if this works in Google Sheets. Let me give it a quick try. It will be 20, 20, 21. Oh, it does work in Google Sheets as well. So you should have been able to do that if you're using Google Sheets too. Oops. Okay, good. Thanks, Ravita. It does work on Google Sheets. Awesome. Okay, and then we'll put our female and our male right here. And this is still updating every time we press enter, and that's okay. Okay, so very similar to how we filled in all those numbers across the top, we're going to be able to copy this same formula to wherever we want, because we don't want to have to fill in all 20 of these squares with that formula by ourselves manually. That would just be pretty time consuming. So there are two ways we can do this. We can either we can right click and press copy, or some of you may already use Control C to copy a cell. I used keyboard shortcuts all the time when I was working as an actuary, so it's really good to get in the habit of using them. So in order to just copy that cell with my keyboard, I just did Control and C at the same time, and now you can see that there's a border going around it, which means that it's the copied cell right now. So then you can highlight all these cells and just Control V, or you can go paste right here like that, this button. So all I did was right click and press this, paste. But if you're working as an actuary, you'll want to learn how to do the control or the keyboard shortcuts, so you just have to go Control V. And now it copied in that formula to all those cells. So we didn't have to manually put it. See, you can see if you go to the cell right here, your formula is still equals rand. And just like it's the same formula here and here, exactly the same. It's just giving us a different number because each time it's creating a different random number. Okay, yes, I can show you one more time. So we'll do it right here as well. So, or actually, here, just copy this, Control C, or you can go right click and press copy. Either way will work, but Control C is the best so that you start learning those keyboard shortcuts. So if you do Control C, then you can just highlight all of the cells that you want to have that random number in, and then you can press Control V, or you can click paste right here like that. I prefer using the keyboard shortcuts, so if I do Control V, those formulas go in there automatically. And just so you know, you can also use the arrow keys on your keyboard to move around in the different cells, just like this. That's using the arrow keys. Can I do the process you did for 20? Oh yes, okay, so to get these numbers at the top here, basically all I did was I put a 20 into this cell, and I put a 21 into this cell. And then we highlight these two cells, and Excel will recognize the pattern. It sees that we're going up by 1. So we can just drag it all the way across like this, and it will fill those numbers in for us. So now we have 20 all the way to 30. Okay, thank you, Sarah. Thanks for letting me know. So this same process works in Google Sheets as well. Perfect. Okay, so now did that help, Alana? Or sorry, Alana and Yaniel, are you good now? That makes sense? Okay, perfect. Okay, so now all of you should have something that looks similar to this with your random numbers all filled in on for these 20 cells. And now let's just make all of these so that they stay the same value. We don't want them to keep on changing every time we press enter. So like I showed you before, we'll just copy and paste values. So we're going to copy, Control C, and then we're going to right click. And since we just want to paste the values of these, we're going to use this right here. But I'm not sure if all of you will have that little shortcut. So you can also go into paste special and right down to here. And that's just going to paste in values so that we no longer have a formula up here. It's just going to keep your values. Okay, so now I'll show you how to reduce the number of decimal places that are shown, because in my example, I was only showing 2 decimal places for each of these numbers. So all we have to do is highlight all of these numbers that we want to reduce down to only 2 decimal places. And there's a button up here in Excel called Increase Decimal or Decrease Decimal. So the decreased decimal one will allow us to show fewer decimal places. So we just click that, and now it's reduced down to just showing us 2 decimal places for each of these random numbers. Okay, there's a very similar thing you can do in Google Sheets. The button is right here. So if you have this in Google Sheets right now, you can go here and press decrease number of decimal places. I didn't copy and paste values. There, now it should look, now they don't change every time. It's not a formula anymore. They are hard-coded values. And yeah, when a number is put into like paste values and we just put the values there, what that's called is hard coding the value, because we're taking it from formulas which can change all the time depending on the different cells that it's linking to in the formula, and then we're just making it one specific number and not allowing it to change anymore. So that's called hard coding the values. Why does the green folder keep running? I'm not 100% sure what you mean by the green folder. Brea, could you let me know in the chat what you mean by that? Okay, so Vera, let me know what you mean. Oh, the border. You can press escape. If you've already copied and paste and you don't want it to hold that value in your copy anymore, like this, if it's going around like that, then you can just press escape and it will stop copying that value. And I saw another question. Oh, the rounding. Okay, so before, these numbers were all lots of decimal places, so we can use this to increase the number of decimal places, or we can use this other one to decrease the number of decimal places that are shown. Is there a keyboard shortcut for rounding? No, I don't think so. Not that I know of. There might be, and you could look on Google for that if you're interested, but it's probably not something you'll use often enough to need to use that shortcut, but there may be something that you can find online. A lot of the time, what is the really good thing about having this Excel training is that you're going to be learning what Excel can do. You may not exactly remember how to do every little thing. So in those situations, you can go to Google and figure out how to do things that you recall Excel can do. But when you don't even know Excel can do certain things, then it's impossible for you to use it efficiently. So that's one of the things I was going to mention to you guys, just that you don't have to remember how to do every single one of these things. The most important thing is to take out of this is what Excel has the ability to do and the functionality to do, because then you're going to know, like when you start working, you're going to say, okay, this will be a good time for me to use that trick that I learned in Excel, or that certain functionality that I know Excel has. And if you don't exactly remember how to do it, that's okay, because Google has lots of good resources. So if you just type in what you're trying to do, there's probably a few resources that will show you how to do that. Okay, so we've almost got our, similar to what I showed for our first table here, this one that we're recreating. Let's start trying something. Okay, so let's try changing these numbers on the bottom. We don't want them to be random anymore. And by doing this, I'll just show you a few different functionalities that Excel has as well. So just delete, if you highlight all those and just press your delete key, that will get rid of them all. And let's just try putting 0.2 in here. And then maybe 0.25 right here. And again, we could do very similar to how we did above. We can have Excel recognize that we're going up by 0.05, and then we could drag it all the way across, just like that. We could also do something like if we put 0.15 here, we could have Excel recognize that we're decreasing by 0.05. And if we just hover over all those cells that we already filled in, that it'll overwrite those cells. We don't have to actually blank them out each time or delete the numbers. We can just go over that and it's going to update the numbers so that now it's decreasing by 0.05 each time. Another thing that we could do that would result in a very similar pattern is, let's just try it below as an example. We'll put 0.2 here. We can increase it to 1 decimal place so we see that 0. We could go here and we could put an equal sign. Now if we want to decrease by 0.05, what we could do is we could refer to this cell and then just put E8 and then subtract 0.05, just like I have here, and then press enter, and we should get a 0.15. So then we could also go here and we could do equals this E8 minus 0.05 times 2, because, or we could just subtract 0.1 because that would be the same as 0.05 times 2. But this is another way you could enter the formula in. And then I'm just going to make all of these show 2 decimal places. And then we'll get 0.1. And then we could do the same here. E8 minus 0.05 times 3. And then we have 0.05 as the result. Or there's another way that we could do this, which is the more efficient way, and this is what I would do if I was starting like doing this for real. I would put 0.2 here. Again, I'll change these all to 2 decimal places. Okay, and then I would say this minus 0.05. And now watch this. I can drag this formula all the way across, just like that. And it's going to do those calculations for me. So try doing that, and then I'll explain how that works. Let me know once you've got this on your screen and it worked for you. Okay, awesome. Perfect. Glad you guys have got this working. It should work in Excel or in Google Sheets just the same. If you're having any trouble, don't hesitate to write in the chat so that we know and can help, because if you're having trouble, then I'm sure there are others that are having trouble as well. Okay, so when we did that, we put it in this formula, and it was referring to E9, and it was just subtracting 0.05 from E9, which was 0.2. But then when we dragged it over, look, now it was referring to the previous cell. It didn't keep referring to E9. It actually dragged over the cell that it was referring to. So this formula is taking 0.15 and subtracting 0.05 from that. And likewise, this formula, it dragged it over one more. And now it's referring to the cell before it, so G9. So when we drag that formula over, just like I showed you, it keeps referring to like the same cell. So the cell beside, when we set up this cell right here, we told it to take the cell right beside it and subtract 0.05 from it. So when we drag that formula over, it's going to always refer to the cell right beside it, right to the left of it. So that's why it's constantly up to date, or it's constantly accurate, because it's always just subtracting 0.5 from the cell beside it. Are these rates predetermined? Sorry, it's cutting off. Okay, so we got those. Basically, these are not random numbers. Up here, I was telling it to always do, like I want it to just decrease by 0.05 each time we go one cell to the right. So the rates aren't predetermined. Well, they kind of are, because we're just subtracting 0.05 from each one. Yes, yeah, that's right. Okay, so now we have that functionality figured out. Another thing we could do here is, let's say, like for probabilities, it doesn't even make sense right now for us to have negative probabilities like this. So basically we want our floor or our minimum to be 0. So we could also use a function in Excel called minimum. So that will take the minimum of 2 numbers all the time. So if we wanted to just, let's say, put in here equals minimum. So basically, I'll show you this quickly before we do this. So if we put equals minimum, we can put in 2 numbers or multiple numbers. We can put in as many numbers as we want. We could put 2, 7, 1, 5, just like that. And this formula is going to give us the minimum or the smallest number. So it should come out as 1 once I press enter. And it does. So this formula, the minimum formula, or the min formula, will always give us the minimum number in a list of numbers that we give it. There's also a function called max, which works the same way, except it's obviously going to give you the maximum number. So 9, 20, 4, 3. This should give us 20. Okay. So if we wanted to, we could, instead of putting in exact numbers there, what we could do is we could reference different cells. So we could say the maximum of this cell and this cell and this cell. Now it's referencing different cells up here in the formula. And once we press enter, we're going to find out that the maximum of those 3 cells that we put in was 0.15. We could also just do this. We could put equals max and highlight all 3 of those cells at once. rather than individually inputting each one, and put a bracket on the end of that, just like this, and then press enter, and it will give us the same result. Does that make sense to everyone, the mins and the maxes formulas? Okay, perfect. So up here, we don't want any of these numbers to go below 0. So what we should do, or we were working here, I had this like that. So if we were to drag this formula, or let's work with these ones here. So if we put min of this number that we had originally in the cell and 0, just like that, it's always going to give us the minimum of this, whatever that calculates to, and 0. And so we actually want to put the maximum here because we don't want it to go below 0. Okay, and when I press enter there, it's going to give us 0.15 because that is the maximum of 0.15 and 0. And we can drag this all the way across. And for these ones, they stay the same, but when it started to go negative right here, for example, we see that it's now giving us a 0 because it's always choosing the maximum value. And before the value, or on right here, the value that it calculates is negative 0.05, and the other option is 0. So the maximum of those is obviously 0. There's another cool trick that you can do in Excel. If you're trying to figure out what actually this calculates to, you can highlight those values in this bar up here, this formula bar, and just press F9 on your keyboard, and it will automatically calculate for you what that value calculates as. But don't press enter because then it will save the value in there. So for example, if I press enter right now after I've done that, it's going to keep the formula as the value rather than keeping it as a formula. But I haven't showed you this yet, but there's also this back button, undo, in Excel, so you can go back and just undo what you just did. Yes, it's F9. So I'll show that again. So right now it might be kind of difficult to calculate what this actually calculates as in your head. And formulas can get much more complex. So it's easy right now, but as your formulas start to get more complex, you'll use this a lot. So all you do is highlight here and then just hit F9 and it will calculate that value for you. When I click away, the cell turns into true. Are you using Google Sheets, Kira, or are you using Excel? Okay, that's interesting. I'm not sure why it would do that, but I can definitely post your questions in the Q&A forum. And I'll try to have a closer look. Maybe some screenshots will help. Or if you're able to record videos on your, like screenshot videos on your phone, that would help. Yes, I am using the F9 button at the top of my keyboard. Another thing, Kira, is I'm not sure, it might be that, are you using a Mac computer? I'm not sure if the experience on Excel might be a bit different if you're using a Mac. Okay, there might be a certain setting in your Excel that doesn't allow you to do that for some reason, but I definitely suggest just doing a quick search on Google to see if anything comes up about why that's not working for you. and also if that doesn't work, then post it into the Q&A forums and I'll have a closer look. Okay, so so yeah, we can do that. And now we have all these max, or the mins and the maxes figured out. So let's just go ahead and create this table before the end of the session. So up here, let's just put in 0.20, and then we'll have our numbers go up by 0.03. Oh, equals this plus 0.03. So, oh, function plus F9, okay. Yes, on my laptop, I always have to press the function button in order to get to my F9s and all the other, like F1 and F2 buttons. So if maybe your keyboard's a bit different where you have to press function first in order for the F9 button to work. Thanks, Michael. Okay. So we have this formula in, we'll finalize it like that, and we'll just drag our formula all the way across so that we're going up by 0.03. You should have the exact same numbers here as I do. Okay, and now let's start to make our table look a little prettier. I'm not sure if my screen just went a different color for you guys. I have it on night setting so that it goes dimmer at night, and I don't want that to distract or anything. Okay, there we go. So let's fill in all these colors. So we can just highlight like this. Yes, previous cell plus 0.03 is the formula that I'm using. And then we can go up here to this fill color area, and you can pick any color that you want to fill in your cells with. I'll go with this orange color for now. And you can do the same here. Okay, and then as you'll see on my example, these cells in the table are actually outlined in a dark, like in black, rather than all the other cells, which are colored, like the outline of the cells is a bit more gray colored. So if we want to create a border around our cells, it really helps to make them stand out. So what you can do is just highlight all of these cells and these ones. Now this is another little trick in Excel. If we don't want this cell right here to have a border around it, because like if you look at my example, I don't have a border around that one. So rather than putting a border around all of these, and then like, so I guess I'll show you this first. So we'll put our border around here, highlight all those, and then just click all borders. That means we're going to put borders around every cell that we've highlighted, just like that. But then these two over here are left out, so you can border those as well. This should work on Google Sheets too. There's a border button right here. So you can highlight all those and use your border, all borders like that. Okay. And now, as a quick example, let's go back, undo what we just did, undo putting those borders on. So you'll have to click this undo button. Now we're back to having no borders. I clicked it twice because there were two actions that I took in order to put those borders on. So I used the undo button. There's also this redo button. So if I wanted to redo that, I just click it and then my borders are back. But I'm gonna go back again. Okay, so a little trick in Excel is you can highlight all of these and then press down your control button. And then you can also select these two on the side here. So this, by pressing your control button at the same time, it allows you to select different sections of cells. So here, 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 maybe those ones or those ones. It allows me to do that only because I'm holding down the control button at the same time. Command button for anyone with a Mac. Thank you, Ian. Awesome, thank you. So, yeah, if I didn't hold the control button down, I would just have to do this. But holding the control down allows me to select different bunches of cells. And that's a functionality you'll probably use a lot in your actuarial work because you're working with Excel all the time and you often need to select bunches of cells. Okay, so if we select all of these in our table, just like I showed you using our control button, you can just go and put your borders on and it will do them all at once. It will add all those borders at once. Okay, and really quickly, let's fill in gender here and age here. Okay, and that, oh, and one more thing. If you want to, you don't have to do this, but I'm going to. Just to make our formulas more accurate, we're going to do equals max of that. And sorry, we're actually going to use a minimum because it might potentially go up to 1 eventually. So I'm going to do the minimum of that value and 1 because we don't want it to go, our probabilities to go above 1. And then we can just drag that formula all the way across. Right now, you'll see these formulas are not using minimums. But if we drag this formula all the way across, these are filled in with minimums now. Okay. Okay, so we've got our table created. It's been an hour now, so in the next session, we should be able to fairly quickly go and create the rest of these tables that we need, and then we'll also start into creating our policyholder data. So we're going to be creating all of these, all of this data randomly. The next session is going to be on Thursday at 7 p.m. Recordings, I'll put up the recording later tonight of this session. And so if you want to go back and watch it, try things, you can do that by watching the recording throughout the week. And also go and ask in the Q&A forums if you have any questions. I'd love if members just go in there and participate and help each other too. We can all learn more. If you'll learn more and you'll get more out of this if you go and help other people solve their problems too, because a lot of the time while you're trying to help other people, you'll learn new things as well. So I want this to be like a community of everyone learning Excel and VBA at the same time, helping each other and learning. Okay, so next session will be Thursday. I will send emails about it. If you can't attend, you will have access to the recording, yes. And I think that's all. If you're not currently a member of the study strategy program and you'd like to participate in the next 7 weeks of sessions, I'd love to have you join. You can send me an email or just join and we'll get you in all the next sessions. Okay, bye guys, glad you liked it so far. And next time we'll get even deeper into Excel. Bye, you're welcome.